Welcome to the Mindful Nomad podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Gutierrez. This podcast is an exploration into the world of creatives, community leaders, and entrepreneurs, taking a deep dive into their lives, focusing strongly on lifestyle, spirituality, mental health, and education. So grab a seat, relax, and join me for this exciting journey through conversations with other mindful nomads. This was previously recorded for the podcast Travel Cuts and Consciousness, but I've decided to keep it on a playlist as it still aligns well with the Mindful Nomads podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to a brand new episode of Travel Cuts and Consciousness. I'd like to introduce you to our guest today, Alan Beak. Alan is the founder and co-owner of barber lifestyle and grooming brand Ruga, which launched in Oldham, the north of England's answer to the Maldives, several years ago. With his brother Reece, they've worked together from a young age and set out on a path to make a difference in the hair industry by offering education globally. Alan has been a good friend for a few years now, since he would constantly harass me via Instagram back in 2012. So it was only right I had him on the podcast. So Alan, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, mate. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Did I miss anything off that intro?
No, mate. I thought you did really well there, actually.
Nice.
Have you been in isolation for about 12 months? Because you look it.
I know, it looks like it, doesn't it? I've grown like this fluffy beard and like long hair.
I've actually started to use products on the side of my hair, which I've not done for about 6 years.
Which one are you using?
Essential, standard.
Essential. What have you been up to during the lockdown period?
Someone told me that it'd be a good idea to do a podcast and give me some ideas and some advice on what platforms to use and stuff. He's a bit of a muppet, but he really helped me out. And so I've been doing a podcast with your help, so thank you for that.
No worries.
Been training quite a lot. There's nothing better than obviously working out and exercising, because I've got the time to do it. And my wife's working, which means I've got the kids a few times a week on my own, going for walks, doing the things that, anything to keep us occupied and busy, really.
Yeah. So you're not bored, or you are bored still?
Yeah, I am. I am bored. It's tough. It's difficult.
Yeah.
We're in a very, very uncertain time. It's like, I read a book about a guy who did, the book's called A Bit of a Stretch, and he explains about some prisoners who go to prison and they're there for an indefinite amount of time. So they don't actually know. And now I know how it feels. I'm obviously not confined to a 6x6 cell or anything like that and having to eat complete shit. I'm eating good. I'm eating healthy. But we just don't actually know. We want to think that it's 3 weeks. The paper said today it could be 6 months. But we don't know. No one knows.
Yeah. I think it's mad. Did you see about Trump today saying that?
Yeah, he's a tosser. About
I
injecting
didn't
yourself.
see what he said. But yeah, I saw the disinfectant thing and I was like, oh.
It was funny because within about, 15 minutes of him saying that, someone put a post up on Instagram with a bottle of Dettol in a little whiskey glass with a couple of pieces of ice. And I thought, yeah, brilliant. The internet's brilliant, isn't it?
I heard a warning on the radio before saying, do not put disinfectant into your body. So the worry that people would actually turn around and put disinfectant in the body. I'm sure there's some people who would.
You're from Liverpool, I'm from Manchester. I'm sure we've put worse things in our body.
Potentially.
Standard.
So anyway, a lot of people obviously know you, the famous Alan Beak, but there's a lot of people who might not know you. So can you just kind of run through a little bit of the background to your career?
Yeah, so I started off going to the barbers when I was obviously really, really young and got a real taste for it. And I am an extrovert and I like people. I like being around people. I think that's one of the hardest things about isolation is the fact that I've gone from being around, 50, 60, 70 people a day to, just 3. And it's been tough. But I really, really wanted to be in that kind of environment. So when I was 12, I started working in a barbershop and just loved every minute of it. And I started cutting hair when I was 21, went to college, ended up teaching my own class, went on like a fast track scheme, became a tutor, then educator. and just did all my qualifications just because I had the time. A qualification to me doesn't actually mean anything. But at that time, I thought it was really, really important. I thought it's imperative. I've got to get my qualifications. I've got to do it. And I did. I had the time to do it, So, and then I started working in the shop. I ended up teaching 2 or 3 classes a week at the college. So I was working full time in the salon and then working 2 or 3 nights a week at the college. Busy. I was just so busy. I was always working. If I weren't working in the shop, I was cutting hair at home. If I weren't working in the college, I was doing kind of lesson plans on behavior profiles and progression reports. I was just always working. That's just always been in my nature, really. So then, obviously, as time progressed, we outgrew the shop that we were in and were stepping on toes, becoming more popular. A lot of people turning up, and we was a walk-in shop. So a lot of people coming in and sat waiting. And the people who owned the shop were, sat on the chairs reading the paper, but the shop was full. And then, your intellect tells you that now's the time to move on. So me and Reece left and started Ruger about 5.5 years ago. And it's been a whirlwind ever since. And we've obviously traveled all around the world a few times, educating, doing stage shows, events, private courses, workshops, obviously. And yeah, we've had a ball. If everything ends right now, I'd be happy. If everything literally came to a stop now, I'd be more than happy.
That's interesting though, because I didn't actually know that you educated at college.
Yeah, I did 2.5 years. I did my assessor awards. I went through my cert eds, which means obviously instead of just being an assessor, you're a tutor. So you're actually delivering theoretical education. I think that's what kind of gives me a bit of an edge sometimes to other people, but then they always have an edge on me. You look at someone like Kevin, he's so much more technical than I am, and he's got a broader spectrum of knowledge. And then you get other educators who perform better on stage than I do, as in their physical haircuts are better than what I would produce on stage, but I've got actual educational and curriculum based a delivery system. So it's actual education based.
I think what the big difference would be is that, someone like Kev his education is derives from Tony and Guy. So they look at delivering high level education from a high level educator to people who have already been cutting hair for several years. Whereas your experience is probably, a little bit easier to understand for someone especially who's new into the industry.
I think the way that my specific learning style, it's very kinesthetic. So I have to listen to an instruction and then I have to watch the demonstration. And once I've done both of those, I've physically got to do it myself. I'm very, very hands-on, but I need that audio and visual kind of showing the process first and listening to the process, being shown it, and then I have to do it myself. And then in order for me to then turn the tables round where I'm teaching somebody else, I will do everything I can, obviously, to get the point across. And then when someone knows a process or they understand it because I've theoretically given it to them and then obviously visually demonstrated it, I just try and break everything down as simple as possible. I won't use technical terms. I'll just keep it literally brain dead simple because that was the best way that I learned. And then only later on will I learn the more technical aspects of cutting hair or the more technical aspects of the subject that we're going over.
Do you find that is also, it's beneficial because you are traveling around the world and you don't, using really technical terms might not translate over?
They don't translate. They don't. We did it in Russia and we had a translator and she was fucking phenomenal. She spoke better English than us, and she literally looked and sounded like Hermione Granger from that film. What's it called? Hermione Granger, the film. Harry Potter. And she looked like her, sounded like her. She'd learned and lived in Windsor. So can you imagine how good she had spoke proper Queen's English. And the way that we were delivering and talking, me and Reece, and doing our education, we was, soft, really, really fluid, loads of breaks, and then she was translating it. And then when we spoke to someone else afterwards, we said like her translations were amazing. And he said, how do you know? You don't speak Russian. So how do you know that it was good? And then when I asked her, how she translated certain terms, she translated them completely different. So on the next day, we had to completely tone down anything that was technical and anything that was really, really like barbering or hairdressing related, because there's no way on this earth she would have learned that, no matter how long she spent in England. So we have to break it down. Sorry?
I don't even know it.
Exactly. If Nomad doesn't know it, then she's not going to know it. But yeah,
I think a lot of people who, especially barbers, I mean, it's a different age now, but there's a lot of people who won't understand technical terms that come from hairdressing. Typically, like I think Andrew said yesterday, he was saying like you never use the word elevate. I think it was Andrew or Jody, one of them. All these words people just don't get. They just want to know where to cut up to, what point,
Using elevation or elevate is just a fancier way of saying lift.
Yeah.
What's that mean? Pull away, pull out. There is, it does sound good. And obviously, if we are trying to increase the professionalism of the industry and we want barbering to be elevated or lifted, then, we do have to take it to that next level. As long as the people underneath us can understand us and understand what's going on, so they're not left in the lurch. And there's nothing worse than teaching somebody, using something really, really highly technical, and them looking at you like you've just slapped them across the face and them not understanding it. The most important thing is when you're an educator is walking away and there being evidence of learning. And there's going to be a lot more evidence of learning if they understand what you're saying.
Do you find that you get your point across a lot better when you're working on big shows or more like one-to-one?
Definitely one-to-one. They're very impersonal, aren't they? Big shows are so impersonal. I try and have as much inclusion as possible. I remember like going through kind of like my studies, and when I was doing my exams for to become obviously a tutor, one of them is obviously inclusion and interaction with your audience or your class. And obviously the more you do it, the more they're captivated. So the more that you're keeping their attention. And obviously when you've got a massive crowd, it's hard to do that. It's all right pulling, if you pull out someone from the bottom left-hand corner, people within like a 5-meter radius are going to be fully captivated. Whereas the top right-hand corner, they're not going to give a shit. They're going to be looking at the phones or looking at the watch, trying to see what time Kevin Lutchman's on the Panasonic stand so they can fuck off.
He's not with them anymore.
All right then. So
he's a free agent.
Let's say Sophie then with the Babyliss stand.
Yeah. Do you like? I often find when I go to shows, and the reason I don't go to a lot of shows to watch education is that people are just there. A lot of people are just there for a piss up.
Yeah.
Whereas if I want to go to a show to learn, if I want to go and watch Alan Beak on stage, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna watch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn. And sometimes you go, people are drunk. You can't even see anything because there's that many people in front of you, and most of them are drunk.
Well, it's like as I've gone through kind of like my barbering career, and not even so much my career, my entire life. Like me, 10 years ago was a fucking wreck, hooligan, stupid, idiot. And then as time's gone on, it's literally just taken the absolute opposite turn. Now I'm in a position, or like, let's say a maturity, where I know which shows I want to be at and what I want to participate in when I'm there and how involved I want to be and in what nature. So let's say like the first Barber Connect. The first Barber Connect was, I'll never ever forget how good it was, because it was meeting loads and loads of people that you'd seen and spoke to online and never met in real life. And two, a fucking massive piss up. It was next level. It was so good. And we had to work as well. Like I had to perform like a couple of times. Absolutely annihilated. And even though when I look back now, Like I don't drink, don't do drugs, don't do anything. I'm literally like a nun. But that's because of how I used to be. That was because of how reckless I used to be. And when I look back, I don't look back and embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed at my behavior. I'm not embarrassed at the kind of states I used to get in, because that's kind of led me to where I am now. So I don't have any regrets of how I used to be. I actually look back and think, wow, they were amazing times. No regrets whatsoever. But it's now led me to choices where I choose which shows to go to, and obviously I choose my participation and what I want to do when I'm there, and how I kind of hold myself and how I behave again. And I enjoy them a lot more now. When there is people there that I want to see, I'll go and see them. The people that I want to speak to and sit down and have a coffee with, I will do that. But the boozing thing, when you're going to shows, if you're going for a piss up, just go for a piss up. If you want to go to learn, you need to obviously go and learn.
I think it was different though, like you say, all those years ago in the first Barber Connect. First 2 or 3 Barber Connects, essentially you were going there to meet people you connected with via Instagram. And it was new to us, we didn't have shows just for barbers before. It was completely a new thing. And usually if you're going to somewhere like Barber Connect, you were going for the night, you were driving to Wales.
Yeah.
You were spending the night and you were getting to know people. But I think it's a lot different now. When you go to Barber Connect, people go and stay, but the fact that there's nowhere to actually go for a piss up.
Yeah. The dynamics of Barber Connect changed when they obviously moved to Telford. But I think for the better, because it's taken a lot more seriously now. It is. In Celtic manner, when we were, we got the train all the way there, and it's like 5 hours from door to door, probably even a bit longer. 3 litres of rum, 24 Stellas, and none of us could stand up when we got there. And then we had to work the next morning, get there, get all our passes, do one demonstration on one stage, then go do a demonstration on another. And then as soon as you were done, that was it. You were up and down the escalators, you were going to the bar. Well, to be fair, I was going to the bar as soon as I got there. And it was just mayhem. Pandemonium.
It's completely different, isn't it? To now.
Then obviously now that it's changed and it's moved somewhere else where you're not in that kind of, it's not the kind of atmosphere to get shit-faced, because there is a bar, but it's only small. It's not in a hotel. It's not in the middle of nowhere. It's not in fucking Wales. So the dynamics of the show has changed, and I prefer it where it is now, because you're not under that, not that you're under pressure, because I've made life choices, and there's not enough pressure on the fucking world to start me from drinking and getting smashed again. But it's just when there's less temptation for other people, it makes it easier for me. So because it's not a boozy kind of trip anymore, I enjoy it more.
Yeah.
I think I'd struggle if that show was there, if it was still in Wales, just because of how pissed up barbers get. Yeah. When they start boozing and they're around, when you're around, it's just around anyone in general when they start getting drunk, especially when you're stone cold sober, it's like, fuck off.
2 in the afternoon and people are coming over to you, getting in your face and stuff. It is completely different. If I was going and I wasn't working at all, I might have a couple of pints in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But the fact that I go and work is, I just can't do it. I can't mix the two. I've made bad decisions in the past where I've gone to professional events and I've made a show of myself.
The thing is as well, like,
I won't do that.
How old are you now?
33 on Sunday.
Shut up. I cannot believe that you're younger than me. Can't believe that you're 33.
How old are you? Like 45 now?
I'm 35 in June. Just rank that, innit? I know.
Scary.
I know. But so you are at that kind of maturity level again where when you go, you're not going for shits and giggles. You're going because you're representing your brand, your company, you're working.
Yeah.
And I used to always say to my wife when I would go to these events, I'd say, look, love, it's work. All right, I'm going to work. And it was work, but you got annihilated and it became a weekend away with the guys. And it's really funny because you see the memes, don't you, of like what your mum thinks happens when you go out, what your girlfriend thinks what happens when you go out, what fucking your school
what actually happens,
and then what actually happens. And it's a group of barbers, all lads, literally cuddled around a table, like legs on each other, just talking shit about foil shavers, and that's all it was.
Isn't it mad to think how different the industry is from them times, in Barber Connect 2013, 14 to now?
It's madness.
It's almost unrecognizable.
I do prefer it though.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think there's some aspects like it's grown. It grew quite fast. That to a degree, I look back and I don't even know where the past few years have gone.
No,
because it's gone so fast.
I think it was a lot more light-hearted back then, and it wasn't as serious back then, which obviously made it a lot more fun. Whereas now it's taken that proper violent shove into like competition and negativity online and Photoshop and people bad-mouthing other people online and arguing and shut up. It's obviously as the population of barbers have grown, and then so have all the negatives, and not as much as the positives really, because we've obviously been oversaturated now. The industry has been saturated, overly saturated.
Oh, yeah. There's people, like I was looking the other day, I won't name names or anything, but there's people who I remember coming into the industry, not related to the industry, with products to sell, this to sell, that to sell, and jumped on the bandwagon, rinsed it for all they could, and now they're non-existent. The websites are down, profiles are down, and I think to myself, like, I called that about that person, or people.
You knew it was going to happen.
You're coming to abuse this industry, and then leave it when it's got nothing else to give you. And that's what I don't like about the industry. And like you say, like the negativity now compared to a few years ago. Like I can't recall people slagging each other off in 2013, 2012.
No way.
It was all like, barber love, barber life, everyone supporting each other, everyone happy to see other people do well. And it has got to that point now where, I mean, I think the whole world's catching up into this mindset. There's too much negativity, especially on the social media platforms.
Well, so Instagram was going to take off likes, weren't they, and comments and things like that on a post. And I always just remember thinking, like, not for any kinds of... It's tough because, like, I don't like to be motivated by anything extrinsically, sorry. Like, I don't want to be motivated or find reward from 2,000-3,000 likes on a picture. Like, that's not what satisfies me. Like, I don't get any reward from that. I do obviously like it when I do get comments and I do get quite a lot of likes on a picture, because it just reinforces the fact that I was not right in that post. If I take 10 pictures of one haircut and I pick a really, really good one and it gets, good attention online, you do get that kind of internal gratification that you did choose a good one, and, you've still got it, with your cutting hair and with your photography and the picture that you chose. It just kind of gives you a little bit of reinforcement. And it does feel nice. I think if they was to take it off, it would taper off that kind of feeling, and you would just post it just because you felt like posting it. Whereas now people are so reluctant to post on Instagram or post certain images because they're terrified of what the backlash will be. Because we do live in such a negative society, and social media is a killer for that. People can't wait to jump down your neck and can't wait to do something.
I think it's a catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you say, there's two sides to the coin. I do think it's crazy how addicted to that buzz we've become of getting likes and watching the like number go up, but at the same time, if you're not getting likes, you're devastated.
Yeah, I always remember like this being right. I'm literally my Instagram is just an extension of my personality. I'm a dick, and I enjoy myself, and I'll put anything on there that I want to put on. I don't feel like I'm going to get judged for anything. I don't feel like or what are people going to think? Because I don't give a shit what people think. I prefer it if they like me. I prefer it if they found it funny. But if they don't, then, you know, my page isn't for them and I'm not for them. You know, and people see that, and I still do get a lot of haters that don't like me, who can't wait for me to even a tiny little bit step over the line and think that I'm being a little bit controversial, to jump down my neck and brand me at being something, but then I'm obviously not. And they do. And do you know what? Like, I'd never, ever react to any of it. If someone sends me a message and says, "You just touched the dog's balls. You are disgusting. You are cruel to animals." And I'm like, look, you've completely got it wrong. Did you not see the smile on that dog's face when I did that? Like, trust me, he had a boner. No,
But does Reece text you that personally?
Yeah. You're joking me. He loves it. He's just upset that I don't tickle his balls. But like something like that is just so trivial and so stupid. Like, they're a pair of testicles. Like, you know, 50% of the population have got them. Just chill. Like, calm down. Like, I appreciate it's not for everyone, but it is just a joke. And, you know, I commented on Instagram once on a guy with really straight hair, and I said the words, "How to combat Chinese straight hair." Now, I just obviously meant it in the term of hair that's as straight as someone from China. Now, if we go into the sciences of the shape of the follicle that your hair comes out of why they're that specific shape, it's obviously down to things like climate and the country that you're from. So somebody from China would have follicles that were perfectly round, and hair comes out of the head perfectly straight, which means it's poker straight and comes out like a die. And that's all I meant. And some guy lost his shit calling me a racist, and I was like, I know Miguel, and he's Chilean. Like, trust me. Like, I had to literally say to him, "I'm so sorry that you think that I'm being racist, but that is completely blown out of context. Never in my life have I been branded a racist for saying someone had Chinese straight hair." And he couldn't wait to jump down my throat. And then when I looked up, he'd commented on a couple of pictures, on a couple of my stories. Like, one of them was like, "Yo, bro, you need to do this. You need to go back in with the 0.5 guard." Like, all right, cheers for that. Cheers, mate. And I remember putting "cheers, mate," and that was it. But then I just thought, this obviously guy's shown negativity towards me before, and he couldn't wait to jump down my neck with the racist comment. And then he came back with something like, "Nah, fuck that, man. You're a complete racist. Can't believe you said that. You just lost one follower and lost all disrespect." And I would never normally bite. I would normally just go, "Do you know what, mate? That's fine." And I thought, no, he's having it. And I obviously used a few words that I'm not proud of. One of them being, can I say cunt on your podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. I obviously called him a massive cunt and said, "Go fuck yourself. Go and fucking follow your mum, you cunt." But that, yeah. But that was it.
So why were you initially being racist? It's not racist at all. It comes from China.
Yeah, it comes from China. I've got a business partner who's Chinese, and he's absolutely mint, and I love him to death. I have a Chinese every other week. No, that's horrific. No, there's no one thing. I've been around every single different race, multicultural people, and from every single different background in my entire life. And there was a guy who I used to work for, Jason. There was two guys, Stephen Palmer, Jason Kane Smith, and their shop was Stephen Kane. So obviously obviously joined their names together to come up with Stephen Kane. Like me and you were trying to decide on what to call our joint shop, whether it be Nomad and Ruga. So is it Romad or is it Nuga?
Nuga.
Romad
Nuga.
Yeah. But anyway, they what Jason is one of the guys, and he's gay, and very, very openly gay. And I've been in and around that gay,
choose the words you're gonna say next.
Yeah, I've been around the gay scene for obviously years and years, since I was 12 years old, and I was completely, obviously being at 12, to see him in a relationship with a man, and he's a really, really good looking guy, very, very Beckham-esque kind of looking guy, but with more tattoos. Dead smart, really, really charming. He's one of the reasons why I got into cutting hair. And I've just been around it for so long that it's just so, literally so normal to me. And I remember we being out in a bar once, and we were sat next to a gay couple, and we just got really, really friendly. They invited me back to theirs for a threesome. No, I'm joking. We just got really, really friendly. But the more drunk we got, the more abusive one of them got. And he started getting really aggressive towards his partner. And I remember having to say to him, don't make me have to apprehend you just because you've had too much to drink. And he was like, you fucking homophobe. And I was like, what? Like, you have no idea, mate, how I've grown up and the kind of places I've been. I've been in with the biggest gay club in Manchester for years and years with me top off in little hot pants, parading around and seeing my English teacher. It's a true story. You know, like, I've been around that scene for so long, and like how someone can brand you something that you are completely not, it makes me lose my mind. So obviously when he called me a racist, I lost my shit.
Going back to the other guy.
Yeah, going back to, so basically, there's just no way I don't like being branded something that I'm not.
Yeah.
Like, no one would look at you and say, like, where in India are you from, mate? And you're like, whoa, mate, I'm from Chile.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
In India, sometimes I get mistaken for an Indian.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like North Indian, so like border on like Kashmiri and Nepalese as well.
Nice.
Because up in the mountains you have kind of Asian looking people, and I have a little bit of Asian blood as well. So
I did an ancestry DNA test a couple of months ago. Yeah, and it came back that I was 47% Scottish. Hey,
exotic.
Hey, I wondered I don't even like iron brew, so I can't be.
I did one, and I think I was like 25% Native American.
Really, that's cool.
Yeah. I knew I was, because obviously Chilean, you usually have some native blood in there. And then quite a lot of Spanish, and then English, and even like 2% Scandinavian, 2% Vietnamese, and then I think like 15% Asian or something.
I think I had 1% Finnish.
And the rest English?
Yeah, Finnish.
No, and the rest English after that?
Yeah, and the rest English.
Nothing exotic.
Then 53% legend.
Anyway, yeah. Back to the questions. Went off on a massive tangent there about you being a racist and a homophobe.
Yeah, a racist homophobe.
I might just edit it so it's you saying really racist things. Yeah. So, how would you actually describe your style of haircutting and styling?
It's very, very, very cliche, because I do love classical haircuts. I do love classical styling, but then obviously I do like to be more emerging. So I would always say, a classical barber with a modern twist, like a contemporary kind of style too. I do mess around sometimes just to kind of test my creativity and try and do something a little bit more creative, and try and do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, but back to my basics and keeping quite classical. I do prefer that.
Well, you did some classic Italian barbering, didn't you?
Yeah, so the guys I used to work for, they learned off an Italian barber, then obviously passed it on to me. And when they were telling me about where the techniques come from, and obviously that it was more Italian based barbering, I really, really got into it in college and kind of went into the depths of all their reading material, and they were like really, really old books, and got out the classical Italian barbering books and started to study them. And I just kind of liked that stamp, classical Italian barbering. And you go into kind of, how they designed the techniques that they used and why. And I just found it really, really interesting, and kind of I wanted that to kind of be my identity. That was who I wanted to be. Someone say to me, like, what kind of barber are you? I wanted to say like a classical Italian barber. That's what I had in my head. So because I wanted that to be my identity, that was what I studied, and that was what I kind of made myself become. So I was learning off the guys in the shop, but then obviously doing loads of self-teaching on the side and kind of perfecting and honing the techniques that, barbers from the Italian barbers from the Middle Ages up to date were using. And then obviously in accordance with the evolution of cutting hair, I then obviously had to go into ladies hairdressing and study that, and then fading. So there's nothing or no one better than you're going to learn off is from an Afro barber. Join them all together and moi.
So you worked in an Afro shop? Or?
No, I shadowed an Afro barber, and funnily enough, it's quite strange really, because he was a guy that I covered a class for a tutor. So my tutor left me in charge of the class that I was in, and I ended up teaching that. And she went off to do another class. And one day she said, "Can you just cover my class? They've all got models. They've all done the consultations. They've all filled in the consultation sheets. They know what they're doing. They just basically need supervising." So, and I was still I was 21. I'd only been cutting hair for 6 months, but I was mad into it. I'd been around it for, 9 years. I kind of knew what I was looking at, and I knew what made a good barber, what was a bad barber. And, I just had a little walk around, and there was a guy there, and I said to him, "Do you need any, what are you doing with this haircut?" And he said, "I'm going to do a skin fade. I'm going to point the beard." It was a while ago. "And I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that." And I said, "Do you need any help?" And he looked at me, and he's just a big guy. And he just looked at me and he just, "No, I'm okay." And I thought, oh, well, he's confident. Doing MVQ level 2. They've only just started doing models. I'll have a look. So I did a lap of the classroom, of the salon. And then I got back to him, and he'd just done this perfect skin fade. I'd never seen anything as good as that ever. It was only when skin fading was just kind of, we're talking 12 years ago. Skin fading was just coming back out, and I was attempting it. And when I say it was a skin fade, the closest I got to around the bottom was my Wall Sterling 2s, which is basically like a number 1.
Yeah,
they're not very well, especially back then. They weren't very short. They hadn't been zero gapped, and he'd done this perfect skin fade. Anyway, that was it. Built a relationship up with him. Did some shadowing. I was kind of giving him advice on how to teach people, and he was showing me Afro haircuts and doing it for free. And then he turned up one day for one of my courses, and then he didn't realize that it was me. I didn't realize that it was him, and he didn't get charged. So he turned up for the day, didn't even realize who it was, and we had a right laugh, and just said to him, "Look, there's no way I'm going to take your money, because now it's my turn to give you something, and obviously you gave me loads back then, so that's the way it works."
Had he already been working in the shop?
Oh yeah, he'd been working for years. Yeah, he wanted the qualification because he basically wanted my job role. He wanted to become an assessor and an educator. So you have to, obviously, to go into assessing, you have to do MVQ level 2 and MVQ level 3.
I actually went back in college. I went for 2 months when I first went, when I was 16, and I was in the class with the biggest idiots in the world. No one was taking it serious. So we only got to the unit, was it G1 or whatever, health and safety. It took us those 2 months to do this one thing, one tiny unit, and it was just pathetic. So I just left, and I ended up going back 3 years later when I was already cutting hair, and kind of the same scenario. The teacher would end up asking me to help go around and look at some of the other students.
I mean, I have told that story before, and my tutor back then, she's called Janice Collins, and she is a fucking legend, beautiful person. Brilliant. It's she was she's the only person in that entire department that actually had worked in a barbershop and actually could cut men's hair to a decent level. And then she's ended up leaving and working in a barbershop not far from 50 minutes away from where our shop is now. And that role as a tutor in a college is fucking awful. It's awful because, like you said, the classrooms are full of dicks. I mean, to be fair, I would say I had 3 classes. So I had 2 MVQ level 2 classes, and then one class was the barbering side of a course called theatrical media makeup. So obviously loads of younger and older girls that wanted to do makeup for theatre, TV, and they had to learn an extra unit. And they always put barbering in there because they had a barbering tutor. So they put it in there because I could deal with big numbers of younger people. And the older people were obviously dead chill, dead relaxed, there to learn. They'd paid for the course. So obviously they were mature and wanted to fucking get something out of it. Whereas the 17-year-olds were just assholes.
Yeah, I think back then, especially a lot of I wouldn't know what it's like now going to a college, because obviously barbering's really popular and trendy now. But back then, it was 80% of the class were people who couldn't do anything else because they had no qualifications.
Yeah, standard.
So they were thrown into barbering or hairdressing.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same when I went. It was the same. Out of maybe, so over the 2 years. And obviously, I'll tell you why it was 2.5 years, because the first year I complied and I did everything I was supposed to do, and I followed the curriculum. Obviously, all the number letters and number systems through all of the units, G1, G2, G3, H, and then obviously going down. I did everything, and I did the curriculum to the absolute book. In year 2, I spoke to the head of the department and said, look, I want to mix things up. I don't want shampoo and conditioning to be over 3 weeks. It's a waste of time. I can do shampoo and conditioning in one lesson. Let me mix this up. Let me change it around and do it my way. So I did it, and she just said, right, you've got carte blanche. You can do whatever you want. And then I went to the finance department and said, get rid of these products. I won't name them, but they're shocking. So, and I don't want the class to be using those products. It was a bunch of oil-based products. And it was like, is it really loose like Vaseline, or is it really thick like candle wax? And then the ones in between. And I just said, well, there's no way that I'm teaching a class using them. Well, you don't really have a budget. Like, I know we have a budget. Remember, I go to meetings now where, instead of being a student, I'm an educator. So I go to these meetings about how much each class has per term. Now, and everything's based on success. So you have to have the people that obviously are on the course, the students, they need to be in a certain amount of days for them to get that success. Then they have to pass a certain amount of units to get success. Now, if you don't pass a student, your success rate goes down massively. So what I was finding was, in other classes, they were having all of their work cross-referenced and saying, look, he hasn't done a tapered neck, and they haven't done this and haven't done that. Well, cross-reference it from there and just make it look like he's done it. And that's how people were getting through college. And so in year 2, I changed things up, and it meant a massive, massive workload for me. The products needed changing, the curriculum needed changing, and they let me do it. To be fair to them, they let me do whatever. And it was hard because I had to rewrite it all. We had to send it to the dean. We had to mess about, and it was a ball ache. It just meant at the end of year 2, I had 60 people that went through, and they'd all completed it. And internally, I was over the moon because they'd all gone through and they'd passed the course, and they'd passed with confidence, me confidently saying, you can do a haircut, you can do this, you can do that. Year 1, they passed, and fuck no, like there's only one person from year 1, one person that I'm still in contact with, because you know me, I'm friendly, I'm familiar with people, and if I've started a relationship with you, I can guarantee that I will have a relationship with you 10 years later. And the one girl, Melissa Toff, she's called. I promise you, I promise, definitely. I'll stop being racist. And I know that your head was twitching away when I said homophobe, because I know your secret. But yeah, Melissa was the student in my first class, and no, I'm sorry, she was in my class, obviously, and then became my student. She was in my class and then became my student, and she's smashing it. She's opened a shop. She's been cutting hair all this time, but that's one out of the 60 in the first one. In the year 2, there were loads more because I could spend more time with them. My actual teaching was a lot more effective because of the way that I changed the curriculum. Year 3, I got told to change it back because I had to stick to the national standards.
Yeah.
And then halfway through, like these meetings that I was going to, like I know full well how much to keep that success rate up. You can have something ridiculous like £600 per student for the year. And that £600 is then used, like say if they couldn't get the bus there, you could pay for a taxi and use that fund. You could use this fund all the way through the course for any of them. If one of them broke the clippers and couldn't afford new ones, you could use that money. But none of the staff will tell you this. None of the tutors will tell you that, because the more that you retain, the bigger your bonuses are. The bigger the bonuses for the entire college. Colleges are a business. Nobody realizes that. The colleges are a business. Not every single class is based on money, because there are tutors out there in colleges that give a fucking a great deal of shit. They do. I've met college professors before, the tutors, the assessors, and they all care like you would not believe. They're in there to make a difference. But the college itself is a business. And halfway through year 3, I got a mad taste of it. And I just said, you know what? Even though I feel like we've got a moral obligation to finish these students, there's no way I'm staying in this environment anymore. It was so toxic. And I didn't want people walking around saying, oh, I learned from Alan Beak at Oldham College. I didn't want that, because I couldn't perform or couldn't deliver or teach them what I wanted to teach them. Teaching them scissor over comb, not allowed to do clipper over comb. We're on a fucking barbering course. Don't teach them clipper over comb, it takes too long. Just tell them how to blend in with scissors. Use thinning scissors.
Don't teach them how to clipper over comb because it takes too long.
It takes too long to teach someone how to clipper over comb. That was one of the big things. Drop clipper over comb because it takes too long to learn, but do scissor over comb and use thinning scissors.
I know a lot of barbers who don't like using clipper over comb because they're not confident in it, because they were never taught.
Yeah.
Which is mental. It's like a massive part of my haircutting.
I would probably use clipper over comb probably 99%. Out of 100 haircuts, I'll do one with scissor over comb. Yeah, maybe just the guy with Chinese straight hair. Seriously, there probably is. That is probably the one. That one guy who's got Chinese straight hair. I'll probably use a little bit of like reverse scissor over comb, bring it down, or even just take it up a little bit just to refine the edges, just to take that edge off, and then smash it like mad with the thinning scissors.
Do you know? Obviously, you speak on stage all over the world now. You go to do workshops, teach barbers, and you were educated back in the day. But did you find it difficult speaking on stage, like public speaking at first?
My first one that I did was with the college, and it was about 12 years ago. And I did a demonstration on how to do 2D and 3D patterns. That's I know. So, and when I literally stood there with my model, who was our apprentice at the shop, and I was so nervous, and I was red hot, and I was sweating and shaking, and I'd be lying if I said that over the years it got really, really easy, because it didn't do. It took me about 3 or 4 years to get used to actually getting up on stage and being confident to deliver, like, you know, an hour's demonstration or 45 minutes or whatever I've got. Now, it does not bother me one little bit. If anything, the only thing I feel is excitement. Probably the biggest show that I did was in Jakarta in Indonesia. And that was maybe like 500 people. And it was just in a big auditorium, just me, center stage, massive stage. And just before I went on, I actually had a little like chat to myself and said, "Are you nervous?" Like, no, I'm not nervous. And I thought, I am a little bit shaky and my mouth's a bit dry. Like, and I was almost like a bit relieved that I did feel that, because it's nice to feel those feelings when you get put into a position where your adrenaline's running all the time, and you get so used to it. I find that other life circumstances, you get that same numbness. When my little girl was being born, I was put into scrubs, and the button was pressed to go through to an emergency C-section, and we had forms thrown under our nose to sign in case anything went wrong. You don't know what you're signing. And then they literally threw my wife into another room to have an epidural. And everything was just going like a million miles an hour, but I didn't really feel anything. I was kind of numb to it. And even one of the doctors came over to me and patted me as I had my phone in my hand and said, "Are you okay?" And I was playing solitaire on my phone. And I think the years of performing on stage kind of like stops that production of adrenaline where it doesn't pump like it used to. And I was really, really disappointed. Not with the occurrence, because obviously it was the most beautiful thing ever. Well, it was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever gone through because it was a bit of a nightmare. But again, it was beautiful. But I wish I'd felt it more. Even if I was scared, or I felt more devastated, or was more upset, I think that I would have. It's just something more memorable. I was a little bit disappointed that my adrenaline wasn't pumping as much as it was, and I think that's because of performing on stage. Now, it's massively beneficial of someone who does go up on stage, because the more in control you are of your thoughts and of your delivery, then the better your performance is. So it's, again, like you said before, it's just catch-22 that. But now I'm just more excited than anything else.
Even right now?
Yeah, always.
Excited, racist, homophobic.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the actual process and thought process behind Ruger as a brand.
So I love the creative side of cutting hair. I love that one-to-one with someone. Sitting down, you've got 30, 45 minutes of just connection and relationship and talk, banter, therapy. And that is the way that I've always seen kind of like one-to-one contact with someone. It's good when you're in a group, but you can guarantee that within a group, you're always going to get different personalities. You've got your alpha who's talking above everyone else and butting in and jumping in. And then you've got the person cracking jokes who's really, really funny and can't wait to get them in. And as soon as you start having drinks, they tell a joke, everyone laughs. 5 minutes later, they tell the same one because they want that same laugh. And then you've got your introverts who just kind of stand there swapping the drink from hand to hand. And a group chat or a group discussion is amazing, but there's nothing that beats that one-on-one kind of time, face-to-face, that you have with one guy or girl. Doesn't really matter. And I really, really enjoyed that. And the creativity bit is mint when you've got full control over how someone looks. You've got full control of how they feel. And when you obviously have your haircut, there's nothing so amazing of having that fresh haircut and of how you feel afterwards. And that was the idea behind it all. It wasn't, right, this is how we want to look. This is what we want to do. We want to take over the world. We want to open 15 shops. We were literally just a lifestyle brand based on the feeling of well-being. And that is basically what we base everything around. We had people that came in the shop that was a light technician, and we knew full well that nothing was going to beat lighting in the shop that other than something that emulated natural light. And we just kind of went on everything that we knew we wanted. We wanted everything to be like raw materials, so cork and concrete, steel, iron, back down to the elements as well. Like, one of our products, Elemental, has Japanese charcoal in it, and that's obviously why we called it Elemental. And I think we just kind of work day to day. And like, I'm big on making goals, big on like looking into the future, visualizing where I want the brand to be. And the goals are always there, but I always kind of stay really micro ambitious with goals, because let's say if I said like in 2 years time, I want to open 2 new shops, it takes 2 years for that. I'd rather say, look, instead of setting a goal that wasn't tangible, that was too far away, I'd rather set a goal that was in a shorter frame of time and say, look, in 6 months, find 2 or 3 possible locations where we could do it, and then just kind of build on like that. So I'm just kind of going with the flow, and I don't like to ever interrupt that flow. I just like to see where working hard will take me. And the way that me and Reece obviously run the shop is just like 2 friends that just go to a place every day, make other people feel good, have a laugh while we're there. We do run a tight ship in the shop, but everything is based around the client. like the girls, we have 2 juniors and we're looking to have 2 juniors, but we chose that. We sacrifice that money because we want to make sure that the clients are looked after more than anything. They're the most important things that come through your shop. Look at Amazon and Jeff Bezos bases his entire company around the client and the customer, and it's fucking worked for him. And that's all we're bothered about. Just making sure that the client is well looked after, and we have client retention, and people are always satisfied, or their expectations haven't just been met, they've been completely exceeded. That's what the brand is all about. And then when something else comes up, if we design a new product, we develop something else, or we get a job in Arkansas or Perth or in Sydney or anywhere in the world, that's a bonus. Everything else is just a bonus. We have a mission statement when it comes to things like our education and our product line. And the mission statement is that we want to create a globally identifiable brand, recognized for the positive growth of others. And that's it. That's exactly what we're based. That's the brand.
Nice.
And you know what? Like I did think of you a lot when we wanted to. So we have a business partner, me and Reece, who's called Daryl Desmond, who's an absolute legend, and he was my translator in Jakarta, Indonesia. And somebody asked me a question when I was on stage, and it was kind of like along the lines of, here in Jakarta, we have lots of barbershops and everyone's in competition with each other. And there isn't much education in Jakarta, and there isn't much education in, let's say, countries that you wouldn't normally associate with barbering. Things like the UK and the US you do, and there's a lot of education there. When you start going to places like India, Asia, Southeast Asia, places like that, there isn't loads of education because it's a different world. It's a completely different culture where if you've got or you possess a certain set of skills that become a nightmare for people like you, I will find you and I will kill you. No, less than Liam Neeson. So if you possess a certain set of skills, then that gives you that competitive edge to like the barbershop down the road. Then you're more likely to earn more money, and it's fucking ruthless and it's cutthroat out there, pardon the pun. So what his question was you travel around the world sharing what you know. Like, do you not think that it's you're giving away, what you own to your competition? And I just said to him, like, that is completely not what we're about. We're about the growth of our industry. And if we have something, like, we want to share it as much as possible because we want to see the industry grow, not just us personally. If we grow personally and help someone else, if I learn something or if I do something that kind of gets me recognition, I will turn around and I will reach down and I will pull someone up with me. I will always, always give anything to anyone. If I possess something and they want it, I will give it to them as long as they ask politely. And I feel like they deserve it. Of course, like, I would always share, because no matter what I know, I've got it from someone else. I've not made it up. I didn't make up clipper over comb. I didn't design all the combs that were with it. I use a specific technique with a specific comb. And if someone wants to know my process, I'll tell them. So then that started off the relationship with Daryl. He was my translator, translated everything. And he said that he really liked that ethos and kind of the way that I thought and the way that the route that I wanted to go down with the industry and education. And he said, like, would you be interested in doing some things together? He's got a very, very similar mindset. And we were talking about a name for a page where we wanted to share other people's work, not just become a sharing page just to get as many followers as possible. We were literally just wanting to create a platform to let other people see what other people had from around the world. And I weren't just going to base it in America. Like some sharing sites are literally just biased to the country that they're in. Like, we wanted to base it on mainly other places. And the main focus was obviously other cultures. And you always, always come into mind with that. Obviously with your name, your brand, and your activities over the last decade and more, traveling around and seeing all those different cultures. Like, how did you find that differentiation from cutting hair in the UK to seeing barbering from all over the world?
I think, for the most part, like in 2012 when I started planning the Nomad Barber it was called, barbering was just kind of coming to the forefront of people's minds in terms of it being a trend around the world. So it was kind of just starting to grow. But when we went to a lot of countries where Instagram wasn't a big thing. You know, barbers weren't following other barbers on Instagram in a lot of the countries. So until we kind of got through several countries and to Singapore, we didn't realize how big of an impact the project was actually happening. The project was having on the industry. But in terms of the differentiation, is that a lot of the countries around Southeast Asia, there were so many barbershops, but it was still quite a new trend. So there were a lot of people who had only been cutting hair for 2 months. They literally, someone's been cutting hair a year. They opened the shop. They started training 4 other people. So it was quite new in a lot of places, including Jakarta. When we were traveling around then, there was a few barbershops, and like you say, it was very competitive. Actually, an interesting one, when we got invited to the Indonesian Barber Expo or Hair Expo in 2017, and we actually did a talk, like a business talk for the business owners, which I was really confused about. And where we sat down on like a panel type scenario where people were going to ask us questions, and it was all the barbershop owners. And pretty much 95% of them were not barbers. They were just people who had money, who opened barbershops, and they were going to me. They were basically asking questions like, so what's your marketing plan? And I was like, well, I don't really have one. I just do what I like and make what I like. That doesn't really help us. How do we get 10,000 followers? And I was like, you're asking all the wrong questions. It's so, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but it is a new industry in a lot of places around Europe. Even finding barbers for our Germany shop, it was nearly an impossible task because barbering disappeared there so many years ago. Even in Australia, it became like a massive thing in the past 7 years. I lived there in 2008, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of barbershops I actually seen there. For the most part, they were generally like the old school Italian or Greek barbers that, from 2 generations ago. So yeah, it's just, I don't really know can't really remember what your question was, but
it's kind of like how did the differentiation between barbershops in England and America to like back in like India and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, India, like it's one of my biggest inspirations. They just doing the thing. It's been a part of their culture for hundreds of years. Men go to the barbershops to look good, to get groomed, to get the moustache trimmed, to get the side part. The barbershops are phenomenal, and they're such a big part of the actual culture for men. It's different all over the world, but as we know it, our industry is quite small, even though it's so large. Like, we know people from, I don't know how many countries I speak to people on Instagram but there's a lot. And it's become this small bubble of industry, which is an international thing, and now it's all one kind of big group of people, which is, brings positives and negatives as well. The positives being that the standard of barbering over the past few years has grown phenomenally.
Yeah, massive.
It's insane. Like, years ago, we used to look at the American barbers and say their fades are incredible, but they cannot use scissors.
For sure.
We could use scissors, and our fades were not great. And now it's just like, you look at people's haircuts and you don't know where they're from. Yeah. Because there's just there's some phenomenal talent coming out of Russia.
Yeah, massive. Huge talent coming out of Russia. I had a conversation last week with someone, and they were saying, where do you think is the best work at the moment? And I just said, like, there's no best or worst. Everyone can cut hair now. Everyone can cut hair. Everyone's fucking so good. So it's literally just it's actually getting to that point now. I think it's going to do a full 360. What we did was, we started cutting hair in a shop, and we were mediocre. We were average. We cut hair. You could do 3 haircuts an hour, sometimes 4, depending what haircuts you got. Then obviously it started slowing down because everything started getting a lot more technical, and it started getting a lot more difficult. You were using, 3 or 4 different products to style the hair. You were spending 5-10 minutes blow drying it. Your consultations were a little bit longer. You were trying to entice them into have something a little bit different or a little bit more creative because you were doing things on social media. And over the past 10 years, what we've done is completely neglected the client, because all we're doing is focusing on the cyber aspect of obviously cutting hair. And that face-to-face value with people has gone down so much that now everyone's that fucking good on social media, that everybody's that good at taking pictures, editing out those little blemishes, that you can't get popular on. It's so difficult to get popular on Instagram right now. You've kind of just got to be present. That's it. But what's going to happen is, it's like me right now, like similar to what you said before, like I don't do anything for anyone else. I do what I do because I like it. If I post something, it's because I like it. If an opportunity arises for me to go to another country, if I want to go, I'll go. Like, I will literally take opportunities as they are presented to me. And then when it comes to everything on social media now, there are that many people doing the same thing, and people are that good that what we're going to have to do is just kind of not give up on social media, but just be present and then focus on where the real work is and the real difference is made, and that's in the shop. So it might actually do us all a massive favour, the fact that everyone's getting that good.
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy. You look at some people who've been cutting hair for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Like you say, mediocre is the word. Like I can't even remember what I cut hair like, say, 10 years ago. But I imagine I was pretty average.
Yeah,
there was not much to do. There was like V at the back and then short back and sides. And for the first few years of my haircutting career, like, pretty much didn't used to even blow dry the client. They'd walk out with their hair wet because people just couldn't be. They just like take the cape off. You know what I mean? Like the really rough shots where the guys take the top off and then they just rip the gown off and they're like, they just want to get out of there.
I always remember, like, when I first started cutting hair, all I did was use a comb around the crown, make sure the crown was flat, bring the hair forward and choose a comb to flick the fringe over, still wet, use a neck brush on the back of the neck, show them the back, and that was it, done. £7. Thank you, see you later.
I think I was 3 years into cutting hair. A guy started at our shop called Ben. He'd worked in, I can't remember, it was a salon in Cambridge or something. And I always remember him picking up the hair with his fingers. And I was like, I knew people did that, but I was always told by barbers and barber teachers.
So you pick up with the scissors.
No, that's a hairdressing technique. You don't do that.
Yeah.
I'd never picked hair up club cutting with. I think I'd done it on the top a little bit, but never on the sides. And he was trying to show me how to do it. And I've got this wall clipper comb, and I'm like that. I didn't have a clue. Like, I still don't have a clue now, really. But it was just like, it was just foreign to me.
Yeah, it is strange.
And even like we were talking about skin fades before, the only skin fades I did then were when it was like a 1 or 2 on top and skin on the sides. And we used to have like a little filly shave and like take it up really high. But we never really did hair on top with skin on the sides. It just was not a thing. So when it became popular in like 2013, I had to there was this kind of pressure that we should know how to do that and know it well. So when we got to Singapore, when we first realized like, oh, this project's doing well, I was booked in 3 shops, booked out for 3 days in a row, and every single person pretty much had a skin fade with a side part. And I was like, boy, I better learn quickly how to do this.
Yeah, you've got to do it.
I was putting the line in and I was like, oh, what am I doing here? But yeah, I guess once you know the foundations of cutting hair and classic barbering, you can kind of solve the puzzle of how to do that and do it at least to a decent level. Your page has grew
a phenomenal amount. I remember you messaging me. I remember you emailing me, in fact. This is before DMs were even a thing.
Yeah.
And I always remember, I always remember, like, why is this guy being so nice to me? I didn't realize at the time that you had just a really nice people skills and you were genuinely a nice person. But that personality trait and being that type of person has got you to where you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were already trying to network with me before I even went traveling, I think.
Yeah.
You were like straight on it, whatever, like just messaging me. And back then you must have had like 800 followers. And then I've watched your page slowly grow over the years. In fact, now grow quite fast. Why do you think that is? Consistency? Or
Yeah, definitely. Like, I put it all down to consistency and just being completely myself. Like, I'm never anyone else other than me. And you've met me, obviously. We met first online. You've met me face to face. We've obviously had a relationship for what, 8 years, 9 years.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, 8. Yeah, 8.
8 years. So I think when I decided that I wanted to do something different and I wanted to actually make a career out of, I didn't just want to stand behind a chair cutting hair all the time in a barbershop where it just, not that it weren't going anywhere. I just wanted so much bigger and so much more. And I thought it was really bold what you was doing. And I just kind of seen a quality in you that I really, really liked. Because what you'd be planning was, I was very, very envious in a very, very positive way. Because I remember thinking to myself, I would relish in that opportunity to do that. And it was just kind of, I wanted to know the person behind doing it. And I think you'd put up on your social media that you'd uploaded a new video. And I started the videos from episode 1 and started working my way through it. And I actually I'm going to find out when I put the image on my Instagram. I took a picture of my laptop and then and tagged you in it. You remember that one?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I'll find it, and I'll repost it on my stories, and I'll have a look at the date that I put it up. But just by networking and speaking to people, it's like, do you remember when Dan Gregory did the black and white photo shoot with the 4 lads? Was it Pete and Dan, or was it you, Pete and Dan?
No, Pete and Dan.
It was Pete and Dan, weren't it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was. Because then obviously I realised, I never knew that you were a Scouser. I didn't know that you were from Liverpool. Is that racist if I call you a Scouser? Or do you like that term?
I think it's okay. Yeah, like I think anything you say is bordering on racist.
Yeah.
Because it's just the tone that you
the
have
tone
in your voice.
Mate, you know how much I love you. I used to love chili and Merlot, so that means that I'm definitely not
used
racist.
to. You said past tense, so that means.
I used to love chili and Merlot until it was 4 bottles and a night, so that's why I don't love it anymore. But Pete Cranfield and Dan Gregory did a photo shoot, and again, that was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to do that. I wanted to do a photo shoot, and the boys did it. And I remember getting in touch with Dan and speaking to him, and it was mint. The photo shoot was class. It was dead classic, really, really nice. Had that little modern touch. They bleached one of the lads' hair. I can literally picture every one of the images right now. And then I realised that you guys were friends. I think it was at the first Barber Connect. I'd seen you all together, and I thought, right, I've definitely got to introduce myself, say hello to Pete and Dan and Miguel. And I think I've always just kind of done what I wanted to do. Like, instead of just saying to myself, right, I want to do some traveling, or I want to do a photo shoot, like I've just done in a podcast the differences between the words motion and action. And motion is obviously where you plan to do something and you have all good intentions of doing it. And you say to yourself, like, all right, I want to do this. I want to do a photo shoot. I want to go traveling. I want to do a docu-film. I want to do a podcast. And all that is amazing because you're in motion, you're moving, you're actually planning for the future. But then action is actually fucking doing it. And I think that's the difference with me. If I say I'm going to do something, whether it's an internal dialogue just to myself saying, right, I want to do this, I want to do that, I will go ahead and do it. Like, I'll put motion into action as quick as I can do, because I'm very, very impatient, and I'll make sure it happens. I'm surrounded by people who say to me all the time, I want to do this, or I'm thinking of doing that. And I'm like, fucking don't tell me, just do it. Plan it, think of the system that you need to actually get to that end goal. Write it down if you need to. Put it into your phone and just do it. So I think with me, it was just the fact that I've always not just been active on social media. I'm very, very proactive in my normal life as well. So, and then consistent with posting.
Yeah.
I try and keep things varied as possible. If I feel like I like something, I'll post it. That's it.
The funny thing is, whenever I'm on Instagram, if someone pops up random, I might have a look at the page, and you've always like got some sort of interaction with so many people.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably plays a big part in your presence and interaction on social media.
It
You
is
have pretty good interaction.
Yeah, I think when people say, how do I increase my social media following? Like, you've got to be genuine and organic. It's like starting a new relationship with someone. If you go to a party and you go on your own and you want to meet people, there are loads of different techniques to kind of like get on the right side of people. But no matter what you say or do to anyone that you meet, whether it's online or in real life, it's got to be fucking genuine. And I am a very, very much a people person. So if I meet someone for the first time and say to them, look, it's really nice to meet you, I fucking genuinely mean it, because I love meeting new people. I'm not saying it just because it's like mechanically inbuilt in me to say, oh, nice to meet you. I'll say, oh, fucking hell, it's nice to meet you. I've heard about you. I'll compliment them, but I am that kind of person. I'm very, very familiar the second that you meet me. If you smell nice, I'll tell you. I will put my nose into your neck, give you a little kiss, and tell you that you smell beautiful.
I thought that was special.
I mean, you get a little bum squeeze at the same time. But yeah, the thing is with social media is I'll always tell people to be present and be active. But if someone does something nice, I will like a picture. I will comment on it. A lot of people do tag me in their work, and I think it's just polite to like that picture. If someone's tagged me in a picture, they want my attention to see it. And it means a lot to people. Like, I'm fucking so human and so normal that I look at it sometimes, and when people repost the fact that I've liked an image, I don't find it weird, because I used to get the same. But I always think, if you'd be disappointed if you met me in real life, because you've put me on this pedestal, and all I am is just a human that's obviously had really, really good opportunities and took them up. But the main thing that I do over anything is just work hard. And social media is a job. So being active and speaking to people and interacting. If someone asks me a question, I will answer it. My DMs are ridiculous, but I will open every single one. It might take me a long time to go through every one of my messages, but I do it because I think it's just out of politeness. I think it's good.
See, that's where you're different to me. You're an extrovert. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes I'm out there. I shy away from that because I don't want to get into conversation because I don't... Do you know what I mean?
A million percent get it. Like, I think that's one of the most amazing things about like humans and the human race and personalities and stuff like that. No two people are the same. And you've got to be so accepting and welcoming to other people. And like, I wouldn't... You almost know instantly when someone's introverted because you can see that coyness and that shyness in them. And the fact that, their body language tells you a different thing. So if I meet someone for the first time and I know full well they're that way, I would never press them. You kind of obviously give them that personal space and that time just to react or interact in their own time. Now, I think that's obviously why I have kind of another good following is obviously when I go places. So let's say if I go to Italy, I can guarantee that for hours and hours and hours and hours, I will be speaking to a lot of people for a long time. It's fucking draining. But again, that's just another thing to boost them followers. And obviously I have a couple of, let's say, high profile clients. That always helps. That helps massively.
You're talking about when you cut my hair in New York in the hotel? Yeah.
It's been a long time since you had hair that short.
I That's true. I had a shaved head last year.
I thought you'd just been trekking in the Himalayas and needed to shave it all off.
I'm growing it out. So do you actually dedicate time to your phone, or do you have times when you have to switch off where you're like, that's enough?
No, so I will literally do it intermittently from the moment I wake up and sometimes through the night. I will do it as and when I can get. The first thing I'll do when I get off the phone to you, I will answer Rachel from Modern Barber Magazine's WhatsApp, and I will go through my Instagram, and I've literally just opened it up there now, and it's all blue. And I will sit here and I will go through them all. I'll do the filter where it says unread, and I'll start at the bottom and work my way up to the top. And then once I've done that, I'll go to bed and I'll read.
Mental.
I know.
But if you look on my DMs, it just says X amount of requests. Oh,
it's tough. It is tough, and it is a full-time job. And I think that once you've got into that habit, it's just routine for me now.
I think I do sometimes. I'll get to a point where I'll open them all and message back but a lot of them are like stories that I've missed.
Yeah.
So I just kind of say thanks. So like we were talking before, where you mentioned before about if you want to do something, you'll do it. Do you have a process for coming up with new ideas or new projects?
Yeah.
Do you mind map or journal?
Yeah, mind map, journal. So I've got 3 journals, and I carry each one of them around. If I travel, they're all 3 of them with me. One of them is pretty much a diary, and another one is a job list, and another one is kind of like ideas and goals and things I want to research, things I want to do. It's difficult to explain the system that I use with each one. Like if something comes in my head and I know full well that I need to ring my product supplier, or I need to speak to Daryl about an ingredient or some new packaging that we found or anything like that, I know full well that priority wise it needs to go in my black one, and I'll write everything down in there, and that's jobs that I need to be done, and I'll obviously number them in terms of priority. And then one of them is a diary. So instead of just being overwhelmed with this massive list of 3 pages, 50 things that I need to do over the next week, I will take some of that list and put them on, April 25th, do this one, do this one, do this one. And I'm gradually working my way through them. I kind of got into the habit of writing notes down. I think having an internal dialogue, and obviously you'll know, being an introvert, an internal dialogue can either be your fucking best mate or your worst enemy. And negative points and positive points, I started to write them down, and it was about 2.5 years ago when things started to get really, really ropey for me. Drinking, personally, professionally, everything. I just started to proper lose it. My mental illness, my mental health, I was becoming very, very mentally unwell, and I kind of needed to start writing a few things down. I wanted to stop drinking. I've been trying for about a year and I couldn't do it. I got professional help, and then I got more help, started taking some medication, 2 sets of medication, and it weren't working. And I think I was just in such a bad place, and I'd obviously seen someone that was doing it, and my doctor/therapist was saying, like, start writing out these things that are worrying you in your mind. And then when I stopped drinking, and my mental health fucking absolutely skyrocketed into something that was so much better, I kind of got to the problems of why I was drinking so much in the first place, making myself numb all the time, that I continued to do it. And instead of writing any negatives now, like, all I do is plan. So the book doesn't really consist of anything negative anymore. It used to. But as my mental health has got so much better, and I'm a lot more productive, every single book that I read now gives me more motivation and more inspiration to actually do things that are going to benefit me more, how to be more successful, and not so much in a monetary term, but more successful in, attaining happiness, attaining spiritual oneness.
Are you quite a spiritual person?
Not necessarily. No. To be fair though, I like to read about anything that's kind of spiritual and anything that's about energies and things. Because even though I'm a very, very open-minded person, a very racist one, but even though I'm very, very open-minded, I kind of just believe in what I believe in. I wouldn't say that I'm a spiritual person. I'm definitely not a religious person. And, you know, the things that I am and things that I aren't. But I am very, very open-minded. Are you? Are you?
I think so. I mean, I'm definitely more in the realm of spiritual versus a set religion. I think I can respect and appreciate things from most religions. I think that the underlying message for basically every religion out there is be good to one another, love. Yeah, that I think the people have communicated them and misinterpreted them too badly into like morphing it into what they want it to be for too long. But yeah, like I do believe in a higher power. I do believe there's a purpose. I think like what are the odds that there's no purpose to it? It feels like there's more chance that there is a purpose to it than there's not a purpose. You know what I mean? Like the likelihood of us being here on this flying rock through space right now, on this computer, on the desk, on the microphone,
so like
cutting hair.
I'm definitely agnostic atheist, which means that I don't believe in something until proven otherwise, and until we can prove. I'm not saying, look, I don't believe it until you prove it to me. It's basically, if something's proved to me, then I am all ears. I love nothing. Honestly, I've got maybe 20, 30 different clients from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions. And if they were sat here now, I'd ask them, you know, what are my questions like to you? And some of them will say, fucking, you're nosy, you're invasive. And I'm just so inquisitive because I respect other religions and other cultures so much that I enjoy and I'm so interested in it.
I think we're like, see, like I'm like you. I'm open-minded. I like proof for certain things. When I say I believe in a higher power, that's just a feeling. That's just like my thought process is like there should be. Like, why could there be so much good in the world and so much bad? And like we're here, I feel like we're here to learn things.
Yeah.
Whatever it's for, I don't know. In terms of set religion, like I wouldn't like to follow one completely because I feel like quite lucky in a sense that even though I was brought up as a Catholic, I was left to my own devices to come up with my own opinion. And I don't believe that it's fair that kids are born into a religion. I don't agree with it necessarily because I feel like everyone should be able to have the choice.
Yeah, to be an
because if
individual.
you're taught something from birth, like you teach your kids how to tie their shoelaces, they know how to tie their shoelaces until they're old. So if you teach a kid from the day they're born that this religion is what it is, you're basically teaching faith. Now, if you teach faith, then is it faith or is it just
nurture.
a mindset?
Yeah, you just being nurtured into believing a certain way or being a specific way. It's like some religions don't like dogs, some religions don't like rats, some religions don't like cows. And there was a very, very perfect example of this where there was a man, a woman, and a child that came into our shop. And now everyone knows that our brand is the brand itself. Ruger's named after a dog. We all have an affinity for dogs, and we do have them in the shop. And the elder, not old, but elder, the mum and dad, as soon as they saw dogs in the shop, they were not interested one little bit. They had an appointment. They didn't realize what was going on, and they were not. It's not that they weren't happy. They were just kind of mortified that there was a dog there. The 2-year-old child had never seen a dog so up close before, and was so ecstatic, excited, enthralled at seeing a dog that he couldn't wait to get off his dad to go and say hello. So seeing your child so happy and so elated and screaming with laughter, seeing something that he'd never seen before, like they didn't know what to do. Mum had to go downstairs and sit and wait and couldn't be there because the dog was there. Dad was sat there just in awe of his little baby boy, so happy, to the point where he had to beckon his wife up and say, come up here now and see this. And it was then we had this conversation, and, you know, I can speak to someone on a level where I can talk to them and speak to them about their faith and their religion without it being offensive. And the last thing I would ever want to do is offend someone. And I and I remember saying to them, like, personally, like, I know your reasons for not liking dogs, and that's your faith. That's what belongs to you. It's probably one of your most prized possessions, and one of the things that you are so proud of. It's the thing that you love more than anything is your faith. And I don't mean to offend you, but this is my opinion, that it's nature. So it's nurture, not nature, with obviously your religion not liking dogs. Because look at him. You know, he's not born into your religion. He's grown into it. He's nurtured into it. He's told from a young age that he doesn't like dogs, whereas naturally he does. And he completely agreed. And he said, like, it's been inbuilt in me from such a young age that I don't like them. So then now I'm terrified of them because that's what I've been told.
It's true. It's true. You see sometimes families, they all like scalp her away when I'm walking my dog. And it's always like the babies and then the adults. And it's like taught from the, you know, from the elders down to the babies. Yeah, that's interesting though. How many dogs are actually at the shop now?
So we got Reece's 2, Albert and Raymond. They're Italian Greyhounds. You got mine, who's a Cocker Spaniel, and Aiden's, who's a Labrador, and then clients. So clients, we obviously encourage clients to bring the dogs in. They know full well that there's going to be 4 there at any given time. So you could have 6, 7 dogs in the shop at one time.
Do they all just do whatever they want?
Do whatever the fuck they want. Piss, shit. I mean, to be fair, they're all well behaved. They are. If it's the first time that you've brought a dog in, I can guarantee that whether it's male or female, it'll have a piss because it will smell the other dogs in there, and it will just mark a little bit of dominance, a little bit of submission. You know, for whatever reason, it might just have a little pee-pee. But once you've cleaned that up, it takes seconds to do, and we'll just say next time when you bring them, they know what to expect. So just let them smell the inside, and then just take them literally around the block and let them go to the toilet before they come in. So it rarely does happen, but if it does happen, it happens once and that's it.
That's mental.
It is mad. I do love it though. I do love it, and do you know what? It creates such a different, atmosphere. And we've had blokes turn up before, and they'll say something like, "Oh, the missus in the car. She don't want to going to come into the barbershop." And I always say to them, like, "Yeah, but we're not the stereotypical barbershop. You know, I'll have a mop bucket on my head, and there'll be loads of dogs running around, and we'll have music on loud, but it'll be something like, you know, Candy Staten, Young Hearts, and I'll have my top like folded in and dead camp, and you know, we just try and make it an atmosphere that people can't wait to get into and then don't want to leave."
I still need to come to the shop actually.
Yeah, you do. You're not even that far away. I know we've been saying that we'll come over to see you to do this, but I'm glad now actually because you've got no eating in that room.
Yeah.
That's why you cuddle in that blanket so much.
To be honest though, like once we're actually out of isolation and I'm back in the office and stuff, I'd love to have you back. Or I'd love to have you back on and to come over and
definitely
go a little bit deeper into some of the subjects we've actually gone over.
Yeah, I'd like that.
So yeah, I guess I don't want to keep you on for too long because it's the longest one I've ever done so far. So yeah, in a quick one, what do you have in store for the brand in the near future?
So I mentioned before about goals, and I do set goals quite a lot, and it just kind of gives me drive and ambition, and it kind of reinforces my like ambitiousness to carry on making goals. I find that if I don't make any goals in a couple of months, I feel like not that I'm not going to make any progression, just that I'm kind of losing ambition. So I've got to keep consistent with that. And I used to find that if I weren't making goals all the time, then, oh God, I'm missing out on something, or other people are going to, you know, progress so much far forward than us, and we're going to kind of like lose reputation. We're going to lose our place within the industry. And I just kind of now, instead of the goal thing, it's more about the vision. And I just want to continue to grow. That's it. I just want to continue to grow. I want to be known so positively for helping other people, even, whether it be students and us teaching them, or whether it be, someone who lives in Wetherby or Grimsby that's never had a decent haircut, that finally had the courage to come over to a shop, have the haircut, and it's probably double the price of what they would pay there, and then leave with a product that they'd never imagine spending £13 on a product because they've only ever spent £2 on Brill Cream. But then leaving and going home and thinking, wow, it's the best haircut I've ever had. It's the best I've ever styled my hair. It's the best products I've ever used. And changing someone's complete perception of going to a barbershop to something that's completely different and being so much more positive and so much more rewarding. That's the goal. Client first, them being happy. Loads of evidence of learning from people that have come into contact with us through education, going on and actually taking it in their stride and progressing. And that's it.
Sounds good. And quickly, 3 books you will recommend for people to get if they're just getting into reading to think, during this lockdown period.
Right. So, I think one thing that I want to try and give recommendations of books that I haven't already give recommendations on my own podcast. Have I told you that I've done a podcast? Can I just get that in there quickly?
I think maybe you mentioned it earlier, but I guess it's 3 books that you would recommend in terms of that have had maybe the biggest effect.
All right, okay. So I found that there's been quite a lot of things that have gone on in my life, and if, let's say, there's been a negative occurrence, there's been a circumstance where you've been hard done by and you feel like the victim, and I think a lot of us do that. We dwell on something that's happened, or we dwell on a few circumstances or a few situations where we were shit on, or something bad happened, or something is continuously going on. And I just couldn't get over a few things, and I still struggle with things. And there's a book by a guy called Paul McGee, and the book's called Sumo, SUMO, which stands for Shut Up, Move On. And it's a bit of a book that literally tells you to shut up and move on. So it will tell you to wallow. It's like hippo time. Right, if you're pissed off with something, have your time where you feel like the victim and you feel like you've been shit on. Have that. But then it's kind of the steps of how to get over something. And once you release from that grip of regret and sorrow and just feeling of unhappiness, once that goes, you feel so much better. And I think that was a book that massively helped me. It's not fully worked because I'm still pissed off about some things, but I think that's just because I am extremely kind of passionate, really. And passion is just a combination of love and anger, isn't it? So I think it's good to remain angry still at certain things because it keeps the passion going. The next one I would say is David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. Cheesy. Have you read it?
No.
It's very, very cheesy. David Goggins is an ex-Navy SEAL, hitting loads of adversaries where he was abused as a child physically by his dad. He was battered all over the place, him and his brother and his mum. And he just grew up kind of having this massive thing in his head where he had to overcome things. And I think he was just he was always mentally fighting what had happened to him in the past. So by callousing his mind, and that's his word, what he was always doing, he would run 100-mile races, and he'd do them with shin splints and breaks in his legs, and he'd broken foot, and he continued to run. He did the Navy SEAL entry test 3 times, which is called Hell Week, where you don't sleep for 136 hours. He did it 3 times because of injury and other things. But he's basically just a bad fucking, he calls himself just a bad motherfucker. He swears all the way through it. And he is just how he's calloused his mind to focus on us as human beings only ever reaching our potential up to about 40%, but going past that 40%, never reaching your full potential, and how to unlock that extra 20% and get up to 100%. So, and I liked that. It is quite cheesy, and it's very motivational. Like if I run now, I'll think of some of the things that he says, and he just doesn't take any prisoners. Obviously, from that military background, if I'm running and I start to slow down, and I think if I don't make this next kilometer at uphill at 5 minutes 45, then I know full well that I'm going to be behind on my time previous. And it tells you obviously how to get competitive with yourself like that. And then another book I really liked. I mean, like if people are, like we talked about the spiritual thing, and me 5 years ago, if you'd said, are you a spiritual person? I'd gone, oh fuck, no. But now obviously I'm not as narrow-minded. I'm so much more open-minded. And I've read books that have made me think about things. Like I read books on intuition, and that intuition, you've got the scientific side that basically says it's fight or flight. And then you've got the more spiritual side that said that it's a higher power that tells you what to do. Now I'm well in the middle of that because my intuition is fucking never wrong. My intuition, honestly, like if I don't react to my intuition, I'm devastated for a day. I end up getting sumo out because I've made a mistake. If my intuition tells me no, I've just done a deal like signed for a new car, and intuitively I was thinking, no, don't do it. It's not the right one. There's something amiss. And I went all the way through it. And yesterday they went to drop the car off, and it's the wrong car. They fucked it up. And I'm beating myself up all day today because my intuition was telling me no, but I just went with yes. So in terms of that last one, what was I going to say? The last one was going to be... Yeah, I'm actually on my list here now because it would definitely be one of the earlier ones. Do you know what book that you recommended to me, and I've never actually read it because it was always just gone down the list, but I've never actually read it, and it was the 4-Hour Week. You recommended that to me, and I've never actually read it.
It's a really good book.
I'm going to go with an industry one. I'm going to go with Vidal Sassoon's autobiography.
Okay. I've never actually read that.
Oh, honestly, in terms of, like, I always read, they are self-help books, even though I don't like to call them self-help books. I like to read books that help me progress as a person, whether mentally or physically or professionally, personally, whatever. I like things because they push me and I kind of like know more about myself, whether it be a mind management book or a self-help book on how to motivate yourself. But industry-wise, if I read something like an autobiography, like I started Leonardo da Vinci's autobiography because I find him interesting and realised that I don't like him, which is mad. Whereas Vidal Sassoon, you read his book and you realise how amazing he was, how much of a nice guy he was, and you have a deeper connection to him then. So when you're starting to, let's say, if you're starting to actually think of the shapes that you're creating when you're cutting someone's hair, whether it be, somewhat square, somewhat round, triangular, anything, any kind of shape, diamond, then I think I always think back to him and explain in my education where the inspiration to cutting in these shapes came from. And Vidal Sassoon got the inspiration for the way he cut hair from a movement called the Bauhaus movement. And it was just architectural structures based on geometric shapes. That was it. And it was so simple. And reading that book just gave me a deeper connection to what I was teaching because I felt like I knew him more. So inspired and motivated by reading. And it was just nice to kind of get to know him. Obviously, he's dead. And the best thing that you can do...
Have you seen the documentary?
Unbelievable, yeah. The last time I went down to London, I just bought it on my phone and just sat there and watched it.
It's great.
You do. It's just like anything. The documentary, there's a lot in the book, so you'll know quite a lot of it. It's just obviously a lot more in depth in the in the book, but it is dead good.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're the three.
Yeah, Alan Beak's 3 books of his massive list of books.
Do you know what?
Recommended.
I think I am, what I learned about myself a couple of years ago is that I have a very specific and unique personality that other people do have as well. And what people think is an addictive personality is not. It's just an obsessive personality. Like, I don't have an addictive personality where if I start doing something, I get addicted to it. If I like something, I obsess about it. I drank alcohol so much because I liked the way it made me feel. I liked medication-wise what it did to me, mind. It stopped me from thinking. It stopped me from having negative thoughts because I was numb. And what I did was when I stopped drinking, I decided that I was going to start reading, and I was so shit at it at first. It's hard to read, especially as an adult. You don't ever read, you scan. That's it.
I think this is the issue. Reading it's actually quite difficult.
It is. It took me months and months and months to get used to it. And
sometimes I'll go back on a book, like I'll start reading and I'll get 60 pages in and I'm like, I'm not taking this in. Like I'm like you say, I'm scanning it. I need to go back to the beginning and read it.
You
say
the words internally, like in your mind, you will say the words on the page or on the screen, but you're not physically taking it in. And there's nothing worse, especially when you spend and you're going through a book and you're thinking, I don't understand now what's going on. I need to go back. But yeah, it just takes a little bit of time. Judith Orloff, Positive Energy. That was a good book. I'm literally going through my my reading list now. So you're gonna see. Oh wait a minute. You're gonna see things like, what's it called? 50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey.
I hadn't actually read that. Have you read a book, the story of Phil Knight, Shoe Dog, who's obviously the founder?
No, but I remember Liam. I think Liam used to tell me about it all the time.
Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. Starts off like a little bit, you just don't know. He's just a very, very inspirational person, and obviously how dedicated he was to what he was doing. He started off as a shoe salesman, and then obviously created the biggest brand in the entire world. One off.
Ruger.
Yeah, Ruger. Roger there.
Sick. Alan, that was amazing. I'm sure we're gonna have you back on talking about more stuff. This is the longest I've done so far.
Sorry to keep you up. I know that.
No, it's fine. I'm up until all hours at the minute. It's unusual for me. So for people who are maybe just listening and they're not going to look at the description because they're too lazy, can you give us your Instagram, the shop's Instagram, and your website?
So my Instagram is at ALAN_Beak, BEAK, and the shop is at Ruger, RUGER _Barber. So Alan Beak and Ruger Barber.
Sick. And it's rugerbarber.com, is it?
The website is www.rugerbarber.com.
Wonderful. Sick. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being the racist homophobe we all know and love.
I know, yeah. Oh, God.
Cheers, bro.